All right, and we're live. All right, everyone. Thank you all for being here. This is the 2026-2027 Artists at the Center virtual info session, the first one. There'll be another one in a couple weeks. This will be recorded so that folks can reference it later on in the future, or for folks who weren't able to join us. So real quick, my name is Zach Frimmel. I'm the project manager for the Arts at the Center program over at the Office of Arts and Culture, and I'm joined by my partner, Pete.
Hello, Pete Rush. I work with Seattle Center, and as you'll learn soon, it will be my job to help implement and execute your Artists at the Center performances.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Just going to do a quick little kind of roadmap here and kind of dive into some of the presentation. So we'll go over the program overview. We'll review the guidelines. We will kind of show you how to apply for the grant influx. We'll go over the application questions. We'll go over the timeline for the grant cycle, and then we'll go over questions at the end. There are a couple designated question segments throughout as well. So, try and hold your questions to one of those sections unless, yeah, that's just very, very urgent. Let's see here. So big picture, yeah, what's up?
Well, if you do have a question and you're afraid of remembering it, go ahead and write it in the chat and we'll make sure that we can address it when it's time.
Thank you, Pete. Yes. Yes, please use the chat for accessibility reasons or just in general. We'll keep track of those throughout the presentation. And yeah, so the big picture for the program, this is a yearly series of free pop-up performances across the Seattle Center campus. This program is to showcase and highlight Seattle's diverse communities, to serve emerging to established artists. This is a competitive application process, and for each year, we are able to give out $106,000 per year. This is a 10-year program, and we are lucky enough to be in the 6th year of the program. So we're moving right along. And so the funders for the program, we have the Climate Pledge Arena and also the Seattle Kraken. So we thank them for helping us serve artists all of these years. And then our partners of the program are the Office of Arts and Culture, where I'm at, and then Seattle Center, where Pete works, and then the Uptown Arts and Culture Coalition. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about these partnerships here. So at the Office of Arts and Culture side of things, we run the contracting, the payments, the evaluation process, as well as the application process, and we kind of co-pilot or co-manage that with the Seattle Center. And then Seattle Center works with booking the awardees, the tech and production for the awardees, and then the day of show execution, as well as marketing. Our partners over at Uptown Arts and Culture Coalition also help with photo documentation for each of the shows, and then additional marketing support as well. Anything you'd like to add, Pete? Good. Okay.
No, that's pretty good.
Straightforward.
UACC is the stewards of the Uptown Neighborhoods Arts and Culture District. As these events happen in that neighborhood, they're very excited to help support. And they do send a photographer who, for all of these events, takes some professional quality photos, and those are made available to you after the fact.
That's great. It's a great perk of this program. So let's see, some programming highlights. This program exists to introduce a diverse selection of emerging to established artists, which can be through applicants of individual applicants or community groups or organizations. And looking to have the Seattle Center campus activated through pop-ups year-round in the different performance seasons, which we'll share in a little bit. The program exists to broaden the arts and cultural experiences of the Uptown Arts and Cultural District. These are one-time performances. They can either be in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. It exists for all kinds of artistic genres, which can include, but are not limited to, music, dance, cultural demonstrations, theater, and multidisciplinary work. Applicants can request the following award amounts, which include the in-kind production support. So there are 3 different award tiers. We have $2,000, which comes with 780 in-kind production support. We have the $4,000 tier, which comes with 1,420 production support, and then the $6,000 award, which comes with $1,860 in-kind production support. And Peter will kind of go over all of those like resources a little bit later. Okay. So eligibility for the program. For applicants, basically, if you were an awardee for last season, for the 2025-2026 season, you're not eligible to apply this year for funding. It's like every other cycle. Awardees are allowed to apply for. Applicants must reside in King County and present programming regularly in Seattle. Applicants do not need to be a 501c3, nor do they need to have a fiscal sponsor to be eligible to apply or receive funding. However, that's totally okay if you all would like to go that route. Let's see. The applicants can be funded through other city programs, but just not for the same project and for the same expenses for a project. And then applicants may only submit one application per cycle to this program. And then multiple applicants cannot submit separate applications for the same pop-up. So trying to increase your chances of getting an award by submitting 2 different applications for the same pop-up is not an eligible route. Eligibility for projects, we're looking for new and pre-existing arts and culture based projects. They can be remounted, they can be brand new work. All is fair game. Projects must be free and open to the public. So no like ticketing or no like kind of limited availability for folks. If awarded, applicants will need to submit event insurance to the Seattle Center for their pop-up. Pop-ups must be between 40 to 90 minutes and at one of the eligible pop-up locations, which we'll share in a second. And then the project just has to take place between October 2026 and September 2027. Any questions in the chat? No, not yet. Okay. So there are 4 performance seasons for the program. The first season is the fall season from October to December 2026. The next season then begins in the winter for January through March 2027. Spring is April through June 2027, and then we have summer. And we'll kind of get into this, but in the application, you'll be able to rank these different seasons as you want. You could select the same one if you're really locked in or very limited to a specific time of year based on availability. You can select the same season for all 4, but yeah, this will all be kind of yeah, work if awarded, the Seattle Center will work with you on which season works best for you. Okay, so I'm gonna let Pete start talking about some performance locations.
Yeah, for sure. We have what we consider small, medium, and large sort of categories. That roughly correlates to a $2,000, $4,000, or $6,000 grant. However, it's not exclusive. If you get a $6,000 grant, doesn't mean you have to do your act at a large venue. If it's more suitable to a small one, that's fine too. Um, but we just sort of, these spaces are varying sizes. And so certain things like a trio might work well in a small location, where if you have, 25 dancers on stage, then you probably want a large space. Once we know that you've been awarded, we'll meet with you and determine the space that best fits your needs. The next slide talks about some of our typical locations for these Artists at the Center performances. The red star on that map shows our two built-in stages. One is indoors in the Armory Food and Event Hall, and one is close by outside, which is the Mural Amphitheater, which is right behind Chihuly Garden and Glass and is our large outdoor stage. Our blue spaces work well for lots of different sizes. Those include the Northwest Courtyard, which is located near Climate Pledge Arena. There's both an upper and a lower area by KEXP and the Vera Project. Our Artists at Play Plaza, which is where the large playground at Seattle Center is located, is a good venue that has some interesting spaces to perform in. And then the International Fountain, generally the area around the fountain. And then some of the smaller venues can include the Fisher Pavilion Roof, which is the rooftop of the Fisher. It's an open plaza. And we have done some performances in and around the monorail. The next slide shows some photographs of those areas, just to jog your memory if you're not familiar with our campus. These are our small areas. The one on the left is the Fisher Roof. You can see that open plaza there. The one on the right is Artists to Play. There's a tiered area which could be used either as a stage or could be used as audience seating, and then a performance could happen in front of it. Then the bottom show, and specifically that's a ramp leading up to it from the Space Needle. Our medium locations include the Upper Northwest Courtyard on the left. The top photo is the Upper Northwest Courtyard. There is a built-in stage there. It's about 20 feet by 12, 16 feet deep. It's the KEXP Music Heals stage. Then the bottom, the Northwest Courtyard, is much more of an open plaza. So that can be configured in a lot of different ways. Artists at Play also has just lots of large open spaces if you wanted to do some sort of a demonstration or gathering there, as well as the International Fountain. It's a large plaza around that. Theater Commons is maybe a lesser known spot on our campus. It's between Seattle Rep, which you see pictured here, and the Cornish Playhouse. There's an open plaza and also has a tiered seating built-in area right there. And then our large spaces include the mural stage and the armory stage. Next slide, Zach. And you can see that there. During the summer, we do erect a roof, a big structure on top of the mural amphitheater stage, so there is some cover from sun and wind and rain during roughly middle of May through middle of September. And then the armory stage is really the best indoor venue that we have to offer. Again, there may be a possibility to do a performance at some place that's not any of these spaces that we talked about. We just include the areas that frequently get used. If you have an idea, you can certainly propose it and we can talk about making that happen. The areas that are off limits would be any of the resident organization stages on our campus, things like Seattle Children's Theater, Seattle Rep, McCall Hall, Some of those spaces we do not have jurisdiction over, so we couldn't perform inside those stages. What's next?
Thank you, Pete. Next is funding. So what funding can be used for, but it's not limited to artist fees, collaborator fees, marketing and promotion for the event, outreach, flyers, those types of things, project management and personnel costs related to the pop-up, supplies, equipment rentals, those types of things. Any of the required event insurance can be covered under the funding, and then up to 10% of the award amount can be used for food, whether it's for rehearsal time beforehand or day of works. What funding cannot be used for is fundraising at the event for anything that it would be a religious service at the event or the performance itself, gifts, awards, and prizes. This is kind of like if there was like a dance contest or something, the just wouldn't be able to use the funding to give out prizes to like the top three um, contestants. And then any organizational or really personnel costs not related to the project itself. And then no purchasing of equipment or software such as like cameras or music software licensing or you know PAs or instruments or those types of things that kind of benefit the awardee kind of after the pop-up itself. Um, and then the funds from this particular program just can't be used in combination with other city funding sources to support other Seattle Center events. So you couldn't use this funding, and let's say you're also you're part of the festival, you couldn't kind of use this to kind of beef up both of the performances and use them all at once. Um, I can let Pete share a little bit more about this as well, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, that covers it. There's some question in the chat about can you use the funding for recording studio hours for a group making a CD or an album? Yes, you could. You could use the funding to rent rehearsal space or studio space, with the caveat being that the content that you're rehearsing or recording is what is being displayed for the pop-up performance, right?
Yeah, that music needs to be what is performed for the event. Let's see here. Any other questions? And Melinda did have a question about if an artist works alone, but also with a group, different projects and different works of art, can they submit an application for themselves and a separate applications for the group? And I said yes, as long as they're distinct projects and they're not like overlapping at all. So generally, yes. And then with those types of questions, if there's any other like details or nuances, I just kind of suggest reaching out to me just to sort through those if there's anything that might impact eligibility or just just to keep it clean for the applicable. What else we got? Can funding be used to promote a tiny album release party in June 2026?
Well, June, no, because June 2026 happens before these projects would.
Yeah. And then so technically, the season hasn't begun yet, so that wouldn't work. But if it was but in general, an album release party, if your performance was your album release, then that could work. But you couldn't do like an outside album release outside of the a one-time pop-up that's not at the Seattle Center. Um, in music performance, can the music include explicit content, or does it need to be child-friendly? It can include explicit content. I mean, I think what that means specifically is maybe what Seattle Center maybe has some. I'll let Seattle Center speak to that because that's actually their purview.
Sure. It's a good question. As both Seattle Center and Office of Arts and Culture as city entities, we do want to serve a wide general population, and we also are not in the game of censoring artistic expression. So we want to support you and the art that you want to make. However, I will just say, bear in mind that your audience can be almost anyone who happens to be on campus that day. Um, so if it's something that is extremely explicit, I think I would just work with you to figure out a location and a timing in which it would be most appropriate to portray that art expression. And if I wouldn't schedule you when there is a children's festival happening right next door, for example. Um, so yeah, we can work with your ideas there. We just need to be intentional about it. Oh, regarding hip hop performance specifically, we've done hip hop things, and there tends to be some language in some of that music, if that's what you're thinking. And yeah, that could float. That could be okay.
Right. Oh, great questions. Okay, so we'll touch on the review criteria. And keep in mind that applicants should address all four of the evaluation criteria throughout your application responses. That'll help you put forth the best application. So we have the career advancement as the first criteria. You detail how this unique opportunity will advance the career of the artist, showcasing their talents and/or advance the organization's mission. Panelists will also take into consideration if you have previously received this award. The next one is achievability. You demonstrate relevant experience or community support, such as support from experienced partners and collaborators to execute the proposed pop-up. The use of award funding is appropriate for the award amount requested, and the scope of the pop-up fits within the in-kind production support provided. So those are the first two. The second two review criteria are artistic and cultural impact. Your proposed pop-up offers a compelling and authentic artistic and/or cultural experience which would resonate with the intended audience. And then the last one is the community connections. Your proposed pop-up uplifts stories, creatives, and audiences from communities that represent Seattle's diversity. You demonstrate a clear connection to the represented communities as well. And any questions about that?
Again, as Zach mentioned, these are the four criteria that the selection panel will be considering your application. They will be ranking it based on these four categories. So as much as you can address all four areas in your application and the questions that are asked, that will lead to a more successful application.
We just suggest, making it personal to the work that you've done, personal to you as either an individual or an organization, the work that you can demonstrate that you've been doing, using an authentic voice as much as you can, and yeah, just kind of, but kind of just describing what the experience of your pop-up would kind of feel like for the panelists.
Melinda has a question in the chat about fundraising at the event. We stated before that your award money cannot go toward fundraising efforts, and that is true. Now, at the actual event, we would allow what we call passive fundraising. which means I'm on stage and I'm like, hey, audience, if you like what we do, come visit our information booth right over here next to the stage, where you can find out more about our organization and how you can support us. And there, an audience member who's interested can go over and talk to a person. And the person's like, if you want to make a donation, here's a QR code, right? That's okay because it relies on the audience making a choice to go do that. What we discourage is people on stage saying, hey, please donate to us so that we can make this performance happen. Because the reality is you've just received a grant to make the performance happen. And we don't want the audience feeling like they need to donate for that performance to have happened, right? So you can invite people to connect with you or your organization in a personal way, in which there can be a soft fundraising ask, but not a direct one on stage. Merch sales would be allowed. Do bear in mind that any merchandise sold, the city of Seattle does ask for a 15% commission fee. So any sales that you make, you would need to owe the city 15% of your sales. And that would be true of any vendors or any other sort of sales that happen as part of your event.
And we have a question about the jury. I can take that if you want, Pete.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's a question in the chat. How do the jury judge what is compelling and authentic, artistic? If I'm not part of a specific community, but write and compose about overwhelming emotions, for example. So, so compelling and authentic is specific, I think, to your an applicant's work or their genre, or like, what is compelling in music is going to be different than what's compelling in theater, what's going to be different in drama or dancing, or so it's really like what is compelling within the pop-up performance that you're specifically proposing. How they judge authentic is, I think within the context of, within the context of the other responses that you have about the background, that the experience that you have with this particular work, with this particular, if it's a particular cultural piece or related to something that's culturally relevant, just showing what your experience is with that particular work and culture. And so the authenticity of it kind of comes through just in how you ground or situate the proposal in the context of like the experience and the connections that you have to those particular communities, whether they're cultural, whether they're within an artistic discipline, whether they're in a particular genre. Anything else you would add to that, Pete?
No, that seems right. I think that the panel often is looking to see, is this artist or is this group, are they presenting work that is authentic to them as individuals? Is it share something about their own experience and the community and the people that they interact and live with, or about the human condition, right? Which can transcend all kinds of things. I think the panel just generally wants to know that your work is rooted in something that is meaningful and a part of your life and expression. I will say, we should say that the panel is made up of different kinds of people. There are representatives from our funders, Climate Pledge Arena and Seattle Kraken, and as well as Uptown Arts and Culture Coalition, as well as largely it's made up of artists, and specifically previous artists who have performed in this program in the past. And we like to get a diversity in artists from different genres and disciplines, as well as backgrounds. So there's a handful of people who will be reviewing, and that's by design and intention, so that a lot of different people can help balance out the panel's response.
Absolutely. And yeah. And by having artists who have gone through this program, they understand the benefit, they understand the advancement of, all the benefit of the program and how the feasibility and just kind of like the what it takes to kind of go to execute this type of pop-up. So great questions. I think no more so far, so we'll keep moving on. Okay. So we have production support. Yeah, you take this one.
Yeah, I'll talk about this. So as we said before, each category, 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, comes with an additional pool of money, and you can see what those numbers are there on the screen. This is money that you, as the award winner, do not ever see, right? This money basically goes to cover the production costs that Seattle Center incurs to help you produce your event. So Office of Arts will take this money and reimburse Seattle Center directly. You as an artist never see it. What it does mean is that the scope of what you do needs to fit within that amount of money. And what we're largely talking about here is labor costs. Anytime anyone performs on Seattle Center campus, we are a union jurisdiction. So all of our stage labor, our sound crews, our technical facilities crews, they're all union labor. And so we need to make sure that the cost of their time is covered. The equipment that Seattle Center can bring to the table is equipment that we have in-house, and that is just offered to you for free. If you need the sound system, we own it. We'll bring it out for you, no problem. If you need tables and chairs, we're not charging you for tables and chairs. However, we are charging you for the person who's setting up your tables and chairs, right? And again, I would work with you to understand what the scope of your performance is, all of the elements that you need. And then based on that, I can be like, yep, all of that will fit within the amount of money that you have allotted to this. Some examples of the production resources that we have to offer: portable staging. If you don't want to use one of our built-in stages and want to erect a small stage somewhere else on campus, we can provide that staging. We can do complete sound systems, which includes speakers, the mixer, monitors for your artists and musicians, microphones, microphone stands, microphones of many different kinds, from handheld to wireless to over the ear to tap mics to choral mics. We have a lot in our inventory that can do that. Anything for if you're a band and need direct inputs for your instruments and so forth, we can provide that. What we cannot provide is what we call the backline. If you have a drummer, you will need to provide a drum kit. If you have an electric guitar, you need to provide an amp along with the guitar. We do have some ability to do projection. Most of that is in the Armory stage, in which there is a built-in LED screen, which is rather easy to plug in and play. If you want to do projection outdoors, it's a lot trickier. It's not impossible, but bear in mind that what we're really talking about there is a nighttime performance in order for that projection to be seen. And the scale isn't ginormous, right? We're probably talking about a smaller projection screen. Basic equipment like tables, chairs, easels, stools, etc. We make parking and free parking available to your artists and your crews and anyone who's part of your group. And if anyone needs to drive on campus to unload and load things, we make that available to you. We provide dressing room space as needed. And then, of course, all of the labor to run and set up all of this equipment is also included. What that, in-kind money basically amounts to is about 4.5 to 5 hours of time. So think about this when you're conceiving of your event. From the moment our crews begin setting up, you arrive, unload, you set up all of your stuff, you do a sound check, you do a spacing rehearsal, you do the actual event, the actual performance, and then all the takedown. All of that needs to fit within 4.5 to 5 hours of time. So generally that leads to performances that are about 60 to 90 minutes in length is the sweet spot in which you have enough time to do the performance, do all the setup, and do all the takedown, and stay within your budget. If you want something special lighting equipment, lasers, or things that is not within Seattle Center's wheelhouse, you're certainly welcome to include those. You would be responsible for providing that, as well as people to operate that equipment. And that can be how you use your grant money to sort of pay for those kinds of expenses. There's a question, do we provide a sound engineer? Yes, any sound equipment that we would provide would come with an engineer or two or three, depending on the size, to run it. And in your application, there is a question you'll see in just a little bit that's asks you describe what it is you want to do and what it takes. And in there, you can just make a list of, we need a sound system, 25 speakers, I'm making this up, 500 microphones and a dance floor. You can sort of just quickly list in sentence form or bullet form your basic needs. Once you are then, if you were successfully awarded, we work with you and have you submit more detailed tech information that gets down to the real nitty gritty. And so high level information in your application is okay at this point. Good question about rehearsals. We cannot offer you the space in advance of your 5-hour window. So any rehearsal that you need to do in the space needs to happen within that 5 hours. So generally it's right before the actual performance. If you need a lot of rehearsal for your performance, you would need to rehearse it offsite somewhere else in the days and weeks beforehand. We generally are not able to give you the venue as a rehearsal space prior to the day of your show.
And specifically for rehearsals with the light and sound crew too, right? Like
correct. You only have crew during those 5 hours, and so yeah. Again, that's why we consider these pop-up performances. They really are more of the spirit of, I'm going to unload my car, unpack my things, do a quick sort of tech finessing, and then do the show, as opposed to presenting a really fully produced performance that in a large performance space. There's a question in the chat. Do we need to break down costs for what the other money will be used for? There is a question that says, how are you going to use your funds? I believe, right, Zach? There's a question about that? Yeah.
We'll get to that.
And generally, that is as simple as, I'm going to use my $4,000 to pay my artist a stipend, to rent some equipment, to rent a rehearsal space, and to pay a videographer to take video of it. Other production-related questions, or any questions about what might be feasible if you have something in your brain right now? Here's an example of some breakdown. At a $2,000 level, what do you get? Again, this is not ironclad. There's a lot of nuance and ways that we can figure things out. But a small sound system, which includes monitors, microphones, power, and then 8 hours of labor, of sound labor, divided by 2 people, 4 hours of stage labor. A $4,000 level, again, is another sound system. At this level, if you need some staging, you start to have some money to include that. And then the $6,000 level is our largest. And this is, if you need a lot of labor, if you have like a 16-person band in which, there's lots of microphones to wrangle and all kinds of equipment, you probably want to apply for the $6,000 level. As well as think about the number of artists you need to pay. If you are a trio, and you could probably do this at a $2,000 level. If you are a 25-person dance troupe and want to be able to pay each dancer a decent wage to do this performance, you probably want to apply at the $6,000 level.
All right.
Yes, Paula. In terms of your application, I don't know that we need you to say it's going to cost X amount of dollars as much as we need you to state all the elements that you need. And we all understand, and the panel understands, that Seattle Center is providing the in-kind production services.
Yeah, and listing it out, I believe it's in the pop-up summary section, is just, it shows the awareness from the applicant, kind of what they need, and as part of the feasible kind of part of the application, that they know what it takes to put on a pop-up like this, and then can situate themselves within the award amount and the production support. Okay, we'll move on to the next section. Oh, any questions? I think feel free to continue asking questions in the chat. Doing pretty good on time.
Yeah, I think next we're going to look at the application questions, and I think this will help everyone to really understand the kind of information that the panel is looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Melinda, yes, the answer to your question is yes, and we'll get to that in a second.
Okay, so how to apply? So the City of Seattle uses a grant portal called Flux. A lot of different departments use this one. The Office of Arts and Culture uses this one for all of our grants. Well, most of our grants. And so if you have not applied through this system, then you will need to create a new account. When you click on this link up here, this is kind of the landing page you'll see. Again, you create an account if you need. However, if you have applied for a grant from the Office of Arts and Culture, basically in the last 4 years since we've had this portal, please make sure you are either logging back into your account or email me to get your account information or reset your password. This just really helps on the back end, and also helps the applicant find their application, and just reduces duplicate accounts and duplicate applications. And I won't go deep into the admin stuff, but it just keeps things clean for everyone involved. So when you do get into the portal, it'll look like this. And then you'll go to the left-hand side, and you'll see the Office of Arts and Culture. And you'll click on that. And usually, I think right now, currently, Artists at the Center is the first one that you'll see, but sometimes if we have multiple grants open, you might just have to scroll down. But yeah, you'll want to find this green button that says Artists at the Center, Funding Opportunity, and you'll click in there, and that's when you will be able to start your application. There'll be some eligibility that you'll need to select, just making sure you are residing in King County, offering programming regularly in Seattle, and then have not received this award in the last cycle. So again, a little bit of an administrative thing too, to help applicants on the front end. If you're starting a new application in this system, the first thing I highly suggest you do is to just put your name or your organization or whatever your applicant name is going to be, because that then Flux will then recognize it and put it into the system. If you kind of start on your application, but if you don't have anything in the name or organization community group section, and save it, it won't know how to find it again. And so I get a lot of emails about lost kind of applications. So that'll just help your overall experience. I won't get into it too much, but it will help, and then you'll be able to then find your applications in the pending or the applications in progress section on the sidebar. Um, Again, I won't go too into it, but just as a heads up, that really helps everyone, especially as like first time users to Flux. Um, okay, so application questions. So this is where a lot of the meat of this info session comes from. So let's see. Is this a question from Mariah? No. Okay, you're good. Okay. All right. So the application questions. So the first one is going to be the artist slash like applicant website or social media link. This is optional, but it is highly encouraged since this application does not request uh, the more traditional work samples. So this is we're asking basically the applicants to share a link that showcases your work and that best aligns with the evaluation criteria. So this could be, yeah, a link to your social media, a link to your website, whatever is like um, shows the meat of the work that you're proposing. Panelists will review up to 2 minutes of the content found in the link that you provide. We'd like to be transparent about this to the applicants. The panelists review, 60 to 60 plus applications. So we just want to make sure that applicants aren't spending too much time curating or editing videos or anything like that, just so um, we respect your time and making this as accessible of a grant as possible to apply for. And then please do not add any additional web links throughout the rest of your application. The panel should just instructed to just look at these web links just to be fair to everybody so that there aren't additional external links that other people are using to add more information that other applicants aren't. Um, Something new to this year based on applicant feedback is link instructions, which is also optional, but will essentially just be a text field that, in the link that you submit, you can kind of give the panelists a little bit of direction on like what to focus on. So if you give them like your a particular subpage of a website, you can say like scroll down to this section, or if it's a social media link or whatever it might be, if it's like a YouTube video, you could say this watch from 3 minutes to 5 minutes or something like that. So this just kind of help. This kind of just helps tailor the like what the content the panelists are watching specifically. Also, a new aspect for the application this year is another small little section just about activations in Seattle. Panelists, we're just interested in learning a little bit more about what applicants have done and like their work regularly presenting work in Seattle, as well as just part of the general eligibility. So just listing up to 3 arts and culture-based activations that you have presented or performed in Seattle in the last 18 months that best represent your work. You provide the program titles, just a quick 1 sentence description, the dates and locations for this. It's really just to kind of, again, situate the work that you're doing and regularly presenting in Seattle. Let's see here.
Couple questions. One question about applying as an individual versus a fiscal sponsor and how that sort of that tax burden, if there's a benefit to doing one versus the other. Is like that? I don't know that I have a good answer to that. You might.
Yeah, 1 second. Would be individual mean award is taxable versus applying with the fiscal sponsor means the award would be tax. I'm not. Is there? I don't think you're. I don't. Well, I think the fiscal sponsor just takes care of the taxes of the award. I don't think by using a fiscal sponsor. Yeah, that's a good question, but
And
to give
and
you accurate
and often
information, I would probably need to follow up with you on that one.
often fiscal sponsors take a cut. So if you get a $6,000 grant, your fiscal sponsor might take 10% of it.
Usually
So
10%,
that's,
yeah.
yeah, that's not a benefit to you as an artist, right? In that regard. Um, I generally think if you are an individual artist and that's normally how you do your business and do your thing, that's how you should apply. I don't think you should go out and find someone to sponsor you for this opportunity. Um, uh, uh, there are a lot of questions about what does it mean to activate in Seattle. Since this is the city of Seattle and it's the city of Seattle's money that they are dispersing, they do want this to go to artists who are benefiting and presenting in King County and specifically Seattle. You absolutely can be performing all over the country, the world, upstate, downstate, the Northwest in general. But they do want to see evidence that you are an artist who has a presence and making a living here in the Seattle area.
I think I see a question about private events. I mean, if it's in Seattle, it can be it could be a private event. Yeah,
It could be
there's
a private
nothing.
event.
Yeah, there's no requirement that it has to be a public Seattle event, but just something that you're activating. You're doing pop-ups, you're doing shows, you're doing performances, you're doing um yeah, you're regularly presenting work in Seattle over the last 18 months specifically for this particular section. Yeah.
And Cecile's saying, "What if I'm new to Seattle? I moved here 6 months ago and I haven't had a chance to do it." That's a totally, fair question to ask. And one of the application questions is career advancement. How does this opportunity advance your career as an artist? And so you have a really compelling case to say there, which is, I'm new to the area. I haven't had a lot of performance opportunities here. Here's a list of places that I've done this elsewhere, so that you can demonstrate to the panel, I have, produced professionally. But this opportunity would get me, seen by Seattle audiences and potentially, additional Seattle bookings in the future. So I think Cecile, I would recommend in your application, you just be upfront about that and state that as a fact. Melinda, we'll get into some marketing in I think just a little bit. Both Office of Arts, Seattle Center, and Uptown Arts and Culture Coalition do some marketing efforts in advance of your performance, and we invite you as well as an artist to promote.
Right. So some other sections of the application. So we have the pop-up summary, which is like the largest section, the narrative section. Describe the pop-up you would like to present at Seattle Center if selected. How will this opportunity help advance the career of the artist/group showcasing their talent and/or advance your organization's mission? Who will be performing? What communities are being represented? Who is the intended audience? What authentic artistic and/or cultural experiences will be shared with the intended audience? Include genres, whether this is a new or remounted work, technical production needs, and anything else you would feel presents a comprehensive and compelling proposal. So as you can see, we've kind of baked in some of the selection criteria here to just be very explicit about, reminding you what to speak to and what the panelists are looking for you to share and elaborate on in a personal and meaningful way about the work that you do. So this is like the core part of like your pop-up. Again, this is where the technical needs can come in for your project so that the panelists understand the scope of an awareness of the project that you're doing. And yeah, just a lot of the general criteria in the first two. The next one is or do you have anything else to share about that one, Pete?
Um, No, I think I will say that
Sorry.
this is probably the most important question, right? That's the one that you want to spend a lot of time on and really carefully crafting. Um, and a good answer to this question, I think, just clearly and succinctly, you only have 2,500 characters, which is a lot, but it clearly outlines this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I want to do for this opportunity, and that's going to further my career and the career of those that I work with in this way. And this is a description of what's going to happen and all the things that I'm going to need to make it happen. And this is what I want the audience to think, feel, or experience.
Okay. Yeah. The next section is just the use of award funding, which we were talking about earlier. Briefly describe how you intend to use the money for your first choice award amount. For example, you can share that you're paying an artist, you're renting gear, you're looking for material costs, those types of things. You don't need to provide a full like budget breakdown, but you should just include fair compensation for creative workers involved, plus any like in kind of donations or volunteer services that might be a part of your pop-up.
And it's important if you are a solo artist and you're doing a one person something or other, we hope that you are paying yourself, right? We hope that you're taking a chunk of that money and saying, I'm paying myself a fee of $1,000 and that's just going to me to, compensate my artistry, right?
Yeah,
As well
absolutely.
as any of the other collaborators and people that you're working with.
Yes, we are very pro paying artists. Um, so yes, please keep that in mind. Yeah, when you are developing the scale of the work and the participants and the collaborators and all that great stuff. We want people to get paid. Again, in a fair compensation way as well. Okay, next one, we've got the flexibility. So should you need to adjust the scale of your proposed event, either larger or smaller based on funding availability, briefly describe how you might do that. So again, there was a question about kind of partial funding, and Pete, I'll let you speak to
Yeah,
this.
you know, sometimes the panel only has so much money, right, to hand out, and when it comes down to the final selection, they're like, we have 20. I'm making this up. We have 20 artists that we want to give funding to, but we only have enough money to get them to 18. However, if we look at these two people and we read their application and we realize that they're asking for a $6,000 level, but what they want to do most likely could fit within a $4,000 budget. And they even said in this question how they might scale it back just a little bit in order to do that. The panel might make a recommendation to award you at 4,000 as opposed to 6,000, so that they can then use that extra 2,000 and give it to somebody else, right? When the final decisions are made and you have successfully been awarded something, you will get a notification saying, hey, we have awarded you at X amount level. You as an artist can then have a choice to say, great, I'm going to do it for less than I asked for, but there's a way that I can make this happen. Or you always have the choice to decline and say, I really don't want to do the smaller version. I really only want to do the big version. So I'm going to say no. And then we will end up giving your award slot to an alternate, a runner-up, essentially. So it's this question where the panel is able to sort of gauge, could this be happen at a different level than what is asked for? And if they feel like it can, on rare occasions, they will award less than what you have requested.
Yeah, and in the spirit of trying to spread the wealth as much as possible as well. Um, okay. I don't see any other questions about that. Okay, so the next one is the background. So also important, the applicant briefly describes your key accomplishments in your artistic discipline, as well as your experience producing performances or events that demonstrate your ability to achieve your proposed pop-up. what are the communities you're connected to, historically have worked with. So again, this kind of goes back to a little bit of the authenticity and being able to understand the panelists understand a little bit of the work that you've done and how it relates to the proposal that you're submitting. But yeah, mostly just understanding the scale of work that you've done. Is the proposal bigger, like bigger than what you've kind of done before, and you're kind of identifying you want to use this to like as an opportunity to kind of advance your scope of this work or remount this project in a bigger way using the support from the program. But you've kind of done like I've done this type of level of this project. So this is kind of a way to show those types of things, just key accomplishments, people you've worked with, communities you've worked with. Again, that really just kind of show the relevancy of and achievability of the proposal.
The application does not ask for a resume. It does not ask for like a bio, but this is your opportunity to essentially, in words, offer your bio, right? A little bit about your artistic aesthetic and a statement and experience.
Absolutely. Okay, and then we have the award category preferences. So we've kind of gone over those, but you can rank them in first through third choice. Again, you can put the same answer for all three if you want. If you're just like nope, like 6,000 is what I want, I'm not going to budge. And that will kind of going back to the flexibility of it. The panel will be like, oh well, this person's pretty firm on 6,000, so the panel won't necessarily consider partial funding for your particular project. But if you want to aim for the 6,000 and you're flexible and going down to 4,000, you can rank them as you see fit with your project. Scheduling preferences, again, you indicate your first through fourth choice of the quarter. Again, those seasons that we have, rank them in your preference. Again, if there's only 2 seasons that you can do based on if you're touring or another or whatever your availability is, you can select the same two of the same seasons, the same season for all four, or a combination of whichever ones work. And again, if awarded, Pete will work with you on the season that really works for different strategies for your particular, customizing your event to maybe other things that are happening at the Seattle Center that might be relevant, or and just general availability.
Right. Generally, I mean, we're able to give each artist their first or second choice. Often it's their first choice. Sometimes someone will say, I want to do spring, but I come back to the artist and say, you're doing like a Chinese cultural performance, and there happens to be this other event in the fall at Seattle Center that is very much aligned. Do you want to consider doing it around the same time that they're doing that? There are sometimes compelling reasons to switch seasons, and we would have a discussion about that, and we would all, agree to the season together.
Thank you, Pete. Question of, do we need to get in details how we have to spend the amount of the award? I'll answer that real quick. So again, the use of award funding is just your general intention of what you're looking to spend the award amount on. If awarded, we'll go through the contracting process and kind of do a little bit more specifics about final reporting and how all of that stuff is, and reporting on the public benefits and those types of expenses and stuff. But for the application itself, I think, just the use of award funding, just what your intentions are for. Am I reading this right?
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think the question is, I'm a two-person act. What level can I apply for? The answer is you could apply for any level, 6,4 or 2,000. two-person acts and $2,000 feel aligned, you know, generally. If you're asking for more, then I think the panel's just going to want to know where's a lot of that other money going toward. You know, whereas if you are an 8-person band, to me it just doesn't make sense to apply for less than 6,000 because, you know, 6,000 divided by 8 or 2,000 divided by 8 just isn't much money per people.
So the second half of that, I don't know. I don't know if those two questions were working in tandem or separate thoughts. But yeah, what Pete said.
And then finally, demographic information.
Demographic information. So this is required on the application. However, there are options to decline to state for all of them if you'd like. These answers are just collected for our internal assessment, and just seeing who we're reaching, who's applying to the program, what gaps in outreach we might have to help just inform future cycles. The demographic information is not a part of your application evaluation by the panelists. The panelists will never see that information they provide in the demographic section. It's just not made available to them at all. So it is truly just for internal city purposes. Let's see. Mercedes asks, have you or the panel ever saw two applications that are so close or so alike that you reached out to both to see if they might want to partner with each other? Just a thought that came across my mind, particularly for someone who is really very new to Seattle, but not new to the craft.
That has happened,
Yes.
actually. As like we've gotten applications for essentially the same thing by two different groups. And it depends on the panel. Sometimes the panel is able to look at that and be like, of these two, this one is more compelling for some reason. Sometimes the panel's like, they're both really compelling. Let's just give them both an award, right? And then we generally like to make sure that they're in different seasons so that they're happening at different times. But I think that there's once where a panelist was like, I think you should put this person in touch with these people, so that, you know, they can collaborate. And we are able to sort of make an introduction in that regard. Now it's up to the artist to decide if they want to do anything about that, but yeah, that can happen.
Yeah. All right, what else we got here? We have, okay, we're coming towards the end here. One more question. Can a tour be an aspect of the proposal, or is this factored in as one of, if this is factored in as one of the stops?
So you're applying to say, I'm doing a tour and I want one of my spots to be Seattle Center, and I'm applying for this grant to produce that leg. I don't know, Zach, is that okay? I guess so.
Yeah, I think you should be very explicit about making sure that the funding and the proposal is specifically for the one-off event at the Seattle Center and not benefiting any of the other part of the tour. In that sense, yeah. So just like the funds are being used for the Seattle Center event. Yeah, I think it's, if you're on tour, that's, you know, it's great. It's nothing. There's nothing. We wouldn't knock someone for being on tour necessarily. That I think it's just important to distinguish and write the proposal as the one-off. And again, you can situate it as part of a tour. People have done like a series of programming. Organizations have done like a series of programming and have like their Seattle pop up as like a finale or something like that, you know, of the ending of a season of something. So it's in that sense, it's similar to like a musician kind of touring or something. I hope that answers your question, Tyler.
Yeah, Mariah, you have a question about a specific location. I'm going to mull on that. Give me a moment, and I will respond to that. Um, the question about, is this award for only one performance? And the answer to that is yes. This is it's sort of a one-time, one-day pop-up performance. Now, having said that, sometimes we have done two showings of the same thing. Like if it's a 20-minute dance piece, sometimes we've awarded a group to do a 20-minute dance piece at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. Right, so they do the same piece 3 times, but it's in one chunk of time. We are not talking about multiple day events. This is a one-day event.
Well, and to clarify, well, it's still usually within the 90 minutes though. So like I think you said 1, 2,
Yeah,
and 3. So it wouldn't be stretched out over like what, 2, 3 hours, but general anyway, it's like semantics.
it could
But
stretch over 3 hours if it
oh,
is simple enough that really
okay.
you just show up and you don't, maybe you have very zero tech, you know, it's like
Well,
a
sure. Yeah.
boombox and a flashlight, and you just do it four
Yes.
times around the fountain.
Right,
That's
right.
possible.
Yeah. So so that's really the one kind of exception for the performance happening multiple times is if you can do it multiple times within like the hour and a half to 2 hour kind of window with you know low tech.
What we want to avoid is, I want to do this in 5 different places on campus, and I need a sound system in all 5 places. That would just be too expensive for us to like set up 5 sound systems.
All great questions. Okay. So we have just some application to-dos, just kind of some best practices. Um, please read the guidelines. The guidelines are your friend. They have almost all the details that you need. We have a frequently asked questions document as well that's found on the materials page of the website as well. And then the production support documents as in there. Check your eligibility and follow. Oh, what's up? Somebody say something. Oh, sorry. Check your eligibility and follow the online instructions carefully. Explore the online Flux application early so you can plan ahead and kind of familiarize yourself with that and how that works. Consider drafting application responses in a document outside of the Flux application system, just so you don't maybe lose content or work or your internet goes down or whatever. Just so you have a record for yourself. Again, uh, yeah, mostly just so that you can copy and paste into Flux. You can use it for other grants as well. You will be able to access your application once you submit it to, recycle language for other grants that you'd like to apply for. But it's just always like, best practice is to have just a backup copy somewhere if something happens. Attend an info session. Congrats to you all. You're already on your way with that. To receive guidance and hear other applicant questions. Excuse me. Complete your profile at the Seattle.flux website. Talk with me, the project manager, about any questions really as early as possible. Assistance to you all and other applicants is limited, particularly the week before the application is due, just due to the overwhelming support and volume of support requests that I get. I also manage a couple other programs as well, so that overlap with this program. So the sooner the better that you reach out. I can help you with questions. While applying, just be clear and concise in your application. Panelists do read and evaluate a lot of applications, and panelists may or may not be familiar with your work or your genre or discipline. So be sure to provide essential information on who you are, your areas of expertise, and your accomplishments. Basically, just don't assume that the panelists know who you are. You might have been around for a while, but just pretend like they don't know who you are. They don't maybe know about a particular, especially if you're working in a discipline or a cultural work that might be a little bit outside of the traditional, performing music, theater, film, those types of things, kind of sharing a little bit more about that particular work that you're doing, just so they can familiarize themselves and uh, understand your work a little bit more in the context, so that they have a yeah, just can have more information to best evaluate your work and understand it as best as possible. And save your work as you go, reread and preview your responses before you submit. If you have someone who can look over your application, a peer friend to look over your application, answer any questions that they might have, that they can kind of act as like a pre-screen for any questions panelists might have. That's always great. And then submit your application before the due date, so you have time to deal with any potential technical issues. This application is due Tuesday, April 21st, before 5 p.m. Pacific. And then if you do not receive a confirmation email after submitting your application, contact me just to make sure if I got it, and if not, I will confirm either way. I suggest this for applicants for any grant that you apply for. I've worked in a bunch of different spaces, different grant portals. It's just always good to make sure you check in with the project managers to make sure that your application went through. Especially with Flux, some people think they submitted it and it's just sitting there unsubmitted. So just make sure you check in. Don't forget to review your application. Make sure application responses are speaking to the evaluation criteria. And timeline. So the timeline, again, the application closes April 21st. We cannot accept late submissions after this. Flux it goes off at 5 o'clock. The applications will be reviewed by an independent peer review panel May through July, and then panel discussions, evaluations are based on evaluation criteria. Then we have in August, applicants will be notified of funding decisions, as well as the awardee orientation and contracting will happen later in August. And then, as mentioned, the programming season goes from October 2026 through September 2027. And then some more for if awarded within 30 days following event, applicant or awardees need to submit their final report and invoice by October 31st of next year. And then also, if awarded, invoices are paid once the final report is submitted. And awardees can request up to 50% of their award amount before their event to cover planning and preparation costs. So I was just getting through that. This last question is just questions, and here's my contact information here, so you all have it. And I know we've got some. I think we've got some activity in the chat.
A couple questions in the chat, and this really, for those of you who are online here, this really is the end of our informational session. So if you need to bounce, feel free to. If you have some additional questions, we'll stick around and keep answering some questions. There was a question about marketing. How are these events marketed? Largely that falls to Seattle Center, but all three of our partners, Office of Arts and Culture, Uptown Arts and Culture Coalition, and Seattle Center, do some marketing efforts in addition to what you as an artist do. At Seattle Center, you will appear on our website event calendar. I put a link in the chat there where you can see some examples of, there's a one-page devoted just to this program. And if you click on each individual artist, they have their own separate page that goes into more detail about their performance. So that is one way that we market this event. In the week or so leading up to your performance, you'll be highlighted as a featured event on Seattle Center website's homepage, as well as the month leading up to your event. You will be part of the running slides on the digital campus signage. So it's all over our campus and at Seattle Center monorail stations at Westlake. Both Office of Arts Seattle Center and UACC does some degree of social media posting about these events in advance. And occasionally there's other opportunities through newsletters and e-blasts, and you know, we will do send to Seattle Center mailing lists. Each season we'll say, here's what's coming up in the next 3 months for artists at the center, and we'll mention you there. So there's a fair amount of marketing that does happen. But we do absolutely encourage all individuals and artists to reach out to your own people and get that word out. Also, we like to schedule these when we know that there's going to be activity on campus. We like to schedule this when we know there's probably going to be a lot of people on here for some other reason, whether they're coming to a Seattle Kraken game or they're there for a cultural festival. We like to schedule this adjacent before, after, or during one of those so that there's a built-in audience. We discover that a lot of the people who attend Artists at the Center performances stumble upon them. They don't even know what's happening. They happen to be on campus and they're like, what's this drumming thing happening over there? Let's go check it out, which we think is a delightful and wonderful way for you to build audience, is to just be there, present something, and have people discover you. There's a question about, can you talk to somebody in advance to go over anything? I think your first line of action there is to reach out to Zach. If the questions that you end up having are really technically related, Zach may connect you to me, and I'm happy to talk through some of those logistics with you. Let's see, did we skip anything else? Okay, I think those are all questions in the chat. Anything else that anyone has, you can write it or raise your hand or unmic and say it out loud.
Or if not, thank you all for joining. And we look forward to, seeing your application in the pool.
Good luck, everyone. Break a leg or whatever it is that you do in your artistic medium.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Most welcome. Oh, hey, whoever is the 22, that's the person who had the fiscal sponsorship question, 292702. I think if you want to jot your contact information in the chat, we can look into that question specifically for you if you like.
Yes, thank you. I'll go back into the chat and dig that up. Oh yeah, here it is. Mariah, you came back. Did you?
Oh, the question is, where can you find the transcript recording of this?
We'll be on the Artists at the Center web page. I'll go through and manually put in all the captions and stuff like that. So it'll be up in about a week or so. And then I have to upload it to YouTube and have our communications put it up on the webpage. But yeah, it'll be, do you have the link? Let's see here, I'm gonna stop sharing here. It'll be on this page right here in about a week and a half. Yep, happy to help. Oh, the other person left. Okay.